Canto 12. The seventh circle, divided into 3 rings, houses the violent. Dante and Virgil descend a jumble of rocks that had once formed a cliff to reach the seventh circle. From the sixth circle, having first to evade the Minotaur. L. Infamia di Crete. The infamy of Crete. Line 12. At the sight of them, the Minotaur gnaws his flesh. Virgil assures the monster that Dante is not its hated enemy. Theseus. This causes the Minotaur to charge them as Dante and Virgil swiftly enter the seventh circle. Virgil explains the presence of shattered stones around them. They resulted from the great earthquake that shook the earth at the moment of Christ's death. Matt. 27-51. At the time of the harrowing of hell, ruins resulting from the same shock were previously seen at the beginning of Upper Hell. The entrance of the second circle. Canto V. Ring 1. Against neighbors. In the first round of the seventh circle, the murderers, warmakers, plunderers, and tyrants are immersed in phlegethon, a river of boiling blood and fire. Chadi writes, as they wallowed in blood during their lives, so they are immersed in the boiling blood forever, each according to the degree of his guilt. The centaurs, commanded by Chiron and Pholus, patrol the ring, shooting arrows into any sinners who emerge higher out of the boiling blood than each is allowed. The centaur Nessus guides the poets along phlegethon and points out Alexander the Great. Disputed. Dionysius. Either Dionysius I or Dionysius II. Or both. They were bloodthirsty, unpopular tyrants of Sicily. Esolino 3da Romano. The cruelest of the Ghibelline tyrants. Abizzo di Este. And Guy de Montfort. The river grows shallower until it reaches a ford, after which it comes full circle back to the deeper part where Dante and Virgil first approached it. Immersed here are tyrants including Attila, king of the Huns. Flagello in terror. Scourge on earth. Line 134. Pyrrhus. Either the bloodthirsty son of Achilles or King Pyrrhus of Epirus. Sextus. Rinia di Cornito. And Rinia Pazzo. After bringing Dante and Virgil to the shallow ford, Nessus leaves them to return to his post. This passage may have been influenced by the early medieval Vicio Caroli Grossi. Canto 13. Ring 2. Against self. The second round of the seventh circle is the wood of the suicides, in which the souls of the people who attempted or died by suicide are transformed into gnarled, thorny trees and then fed upon by harpies, hideous clawed birds with the faces of women. The trees are only permitted to speak when broken and bleeding. Dante breaks a twig off one of the trees and from the bleeding trunk hears the tale of Pietro della Vigna, a powerful minister of Emperor Frederick II until he fell out of favor and was imprisoned and blinded. He subsequently committed suicide. His presence here, rather than in the ninth circle, indicates that Dante believes that the accusations made against him were false. The harpies and the characteristics of the bleeding bushes are based on Book 3 of the Aeneid. According to Dorothy L. Sayers, Dante presents the sin of suicide as an insult to the body. So, here, the shades are deprived of even the semblance of the human form. As they refused life, they remain fixed in a dead and withered sterility. They are the image of the self-hatred which dries up the very sap of energy and makes all life infertile. The trees can also be interpreted as a metaphor for the state of mind in which suicide is committed. Dante learns that these suicides, unique among the dead, will not be corporally resurrected after the final judgment since they threw their bodies away. Instead, they will maintain their bushy form, with their own corpses hanging from the thorny limbs. After Pietro della Vigna finishes his story, Dante notices two shades, Lano da Siena and Jacopo Sant' Andrea, race through the wood, chased and savagely mauled by ferocious bitches. This is the punishment of the violently profligate who, possessed by a depraved passion, dissipated their goods for the sheer wanton lust of wreckage and disorder. The destruction wrought upon the wood by the profligates, flight and punishment as they crash through the undergrowth causes further suffering to the suicides, who cannot move out of the way. Canto 14. Ring 3. Against God, Art, and Nature. The third round of the seventh circle is a great plain of burning sand scorched by great flakes of flame falling slowly down from the sky. An image derived from the fate of Sodom and Gomorrah. Gen. 1924. The blasphemers. The violent against God. Are stretched supine upon the burning sand. The Sodomites. The violent against nature. Run in circles. While the usurers. The violent against art. Which is the grandchild of God. As explained in Canto 11. Crouch huddled and weeping. Chardy writes, blasphemy, sodomy, and usury are all unnatural and sterile actions. Thus the unbearing desert is the eternity of these sinners. And thus the rain, which in nature should be fertile and cool, descends as fire. Dante finds Capaneus stretched out on the sands. For blasphemy against Jove. He was struck down with a thunderbolt during the War of the Seven against Thebes. He is still scorning Jove in the afterlife. The overflow of Phlegethon, the river of blood from the first ring, flows boiling through the wood of the suicides. The second ring, and crosses the burning plain. Virgil explains the origin of the rivers of hell, which includes references to the Old Man of Crete. Canto 15. Protected by the powers of the boiling rivulet, Dante and Virgil progress across the burning plain. They pass a roving group of sodomites, and Dante, to his surprise, recognizes Brunetto Latini. Dante addresses Brunetto with deep and sorrowful affection, paying him the highest tribute offered to any sinner in the Inferno, thus refuting suggestions that Dante only placed his enemies in hell. Dante has great respect for Brunetto and feels spiritual indebtedness to him and his works. You taught me how man makes himself eternal. And while I live, my gratitude for that must always be apparent in my words. Brunetto prophesies Dante's bad treatment by the Florentines. He also identifies other sodomites, including Priscian, Francesco di Accorso, and Bishop Andrea de' Mozzi. Canto 16. The poets begin to hear the waterfall that plunges over the great cliff into the eighth circle when three shades break from their company and greet them. They are Jacopo Rusticucci, Guido Guerra, and Tegghiajo Aldobrandi, all Florentines much admired by Dante. Rusticucci blames his savage wife for his torments. The sinners ask for news of Florence, and Dante laments the current state of the city. At the top of the falls, at Virgil's order, Dante removes a cord from about his waist and Virgil drops it over the edge. As if in answer, a large, distorted shape swims up through the filthy air of the abyss. Canto 17. The creature is Geryon, the monster of fraud. Virgil announces that they must fly down from the cliff on the monster's back. Dante goes alone to examine the usurers. He does not recognize them, but each has a heraldic device emblazoned on a leather purse around his neck. On these their streaming eyes appeared to feast. The coats of arms indicate that they came from prominent Florentine families. They indicate the presence of Catello di Rosso Gianfigliazzi, Siapo Ubriaci, the Paduan Reginaldo degli Scroveni, who predicts that his fellow Paduan Vitaliano di Jacopo Vitaliani will join him here, and Giovanni di Buonmonte. Dante then rejoins Virgil and, both mounted atop Gerian's back, the two begin their descent from the great cliff in the eighth circle, the hell of the fraudulent and malicious Gerian, the winged monster who allows Dante and Virgil to descend a vast cliff to reach the eighth circle, was traditionally represented as a giant with 3 heads and 3 conjoined bodies. Dante's Gerian, meanwhile, is an image of fraud, combining human, bestial, and reptilian elements. Gerian is a monster with the general shape of a wyvern but with the tail of a scorpion, hairy arms, a gaudily marked reptilian body, and the face of a just and honest man. The pleasant human face on this grotesque body evokes the insincere fraudster whose intentions behind the face are all monstrous, cold-blooded, and stinging with poison.